Good day. We've been sent another video in from a past workshop attendee, and in this particular case, the note along with the case says, "Hi T-Bone, hope all is well and things are doing well. Thank you very much. How would you plan this case for implant in site number 31? Noting the distal root of number 30, I have planned this implant, but the occlusal plane is way off. Thank you as always for your help." I love getting these cases. They're always very helpful to everybody involved, and this is quite a common occurrence. Let's start over here from the beginning, and let's adjust and start back, and let's step in. What kind of guide should we be making here? So our choices are certainly always classic guide, but in this particular case, this is an Opti guide, and soon you'll be able to do a Digi guide, and soon this would be a great case for a CEREC guide 2 that you could mill in the office directly from the information that we see here. And that information will be shown at the CEREC 30 event in September in Las Vegas. Certainly we'll be including that in our workshops, and we look forward to that. Next, let's take a look at our our CEREC planning. And I would like to point out a couple of things here. Let me go ahead and clip this area out so I can see. And one of the things that I'm again big on is what I call ideal planning. And in looking at this plan, we can see that our tooth looks pretty good. The only thing I would say is that if we used our measure tool here, okay, and we measured, sorry, I can't do it on that scene, sorry, on that screen. If we used our measure tool here, okay, and we measure tooth number 18, we're at 10.53, and if we measure our designed tooth number 31, we can see we're about a millimeter longer. A little bit less, but roughly a millimeter longer. So yeah, again, nitpicking things, but when we have all the data there, certainly on the CEREC side, let's make an attempt to design our ideal size crown, because again, that will affect positioning. We just want everything to be ideal. We can definitely see how, in looking at this tooth is about that much too long right there. So that would be one thing. Secondly, I look at it from what I call the down the line view, and down the line we can see that our design is very nice. Our cusps are in the right position. I'll question our occlusion, but I don't know if we have an upper arch when we made this. But nonetheless, it looks very nice. Our lingual margin is pretty accurate. Now, our buccal margin, unfortunately, is not so accurate here. So again, in looking at our buccal margin, what I like to do is, if we look here, here's our gingival margin, and then we have a dip down. So in an ideal perfect world, we would have drawn our margin along this line right here, okay? And I'll point out in the planning phase why that's important. We don't want that tooth to come out this deep when we make our final restoration. And the truth is, you probably wouldn't make your final restoration like that. But that margin position, as you know from our workshop training, does affect our implant position. So we want to make sure that we draw our margin on the CEREC side of things for our virtual planning in the correct position. So just a few comments there on the CEREC planning there. Now let's focus on the implant plan. So this is the plan as submitted, and while I have it, let's go ahead and take a look. Based on where your margin is drawn, we have no ability to develop an emergence profile. In other words, our tooth would have to, right here we could develop a nice emergence profile, but right here we would literally have something like this. And that area, sorry, we would have a nice emergence profile here, but right here we'd have that, and this area right here would be a tremendous plaque trap. So as we know, we would so that does correspond honestly to where where our margin should have been drawn, more like that. Okay, so here if based on where the margin should have been based on the adjacent teeth, we'd get a much more natural emergence. But even then, there's not a lot of room here. As you can see, the bone level right there, the implant sticks out. This implant may actually need to be placed deeper to allow for a proper emergence profile. So, all these things play a role in that, and that's not exactly what we're here to talk about right now, but I certainly want to take the opportunity to talk about that. So what this gentleman was referring to on his initial thing was um, his angulation is like this, and in an ideal world, we want the angulation to be straight across. So to do that, we would tip our implant like so, and now we have a more ideal angulation. We'd move our implant into a more ideal position to get it centered in our tooth, and voila, our problem is a very problematic and not far too uncommon occurrence in second molar sites is this molar here. That root is quite diverged, and those of us that have taken these teeth out in the past know that these teeth have a tendency to snap right there. Um, so that root is quite diverged, and if we put our implant right there where it's quote unquote supposed to be, we know that we're going to end up with a massive problem. So in an effort to go against that, we will, certainly move our implant the requisite 1.5 to 2 millimeters away, and now that leads to our occlusal plane issue. So unfortunately, the answer to this in these particular cases is we don't have much choice. Unfortunately, the body's anatomy has led us to have to do this. And so we just have to make that compromise. And that's why I always go with the saying is plan ideal and then choose to compromise. So if I look back at the original plan, let me just remove this plan and let me duplicate the original. Let me go ahead and make a few minor modifications here to this. So one is view, customize, implant. We have it set at 1.5. So we have some space right here. So what I would probably like to do is see that come a little bit closer. Go ahead and get 1.5 millimeters there. We can see we're pretty well centered there. And honestly, in this particular case, I would probably end up trying to cheat a little bit on the occlusal plane and keep moving over, and that'll give me my 1.5 millimeter. Now do remember this is a tapered implant, so 1.5 up here is not the same as 1.5 right there. If we had to, we could use our measurement tool and see that we actually have roughly 2 millimeters right there. So certainly that would work. Now in terms of our bone level position, since our implant is going to be at an angle, our bone is actually going like this. So you can see that part of the implant is not in the bone there. So you may need to just drop that implant a little bit, like so, and do a little bit of bone contouring when placing this. And again, just keep an eye on the nerve there, and we can see our nerve seems to be right around here. So we can probably be just fine in this particular position with this size implant. As you see it here, this particular implant will certainly need some grafting done at the time of placement. I would be very comfortable using some IPRFs mixed with allograft to create quote-unquote sticky bone and to place that implant in this site. So hopefully this video has been helpful, and thank you for submitting this case.